All right, guys, back at Rock Life Studios in Monticello, Kentucky. I've got Dan with us virtually from Alexander City, Alabama. Uh, we both had a long ass weekend down at Top Trails, Alabama, and Talladega. I got home Sunday. I don't know, it was probably 4 or 5 o'clock, and I texted Dan. I said, "Where you at?" He said, "Oh, we're still at the park." So somehow or another, being 7 hours away, I still managed to beat you home.
Right.
Uh, you had a long weekend with that truck and trailer, uh, but overall it was pretty good. So, you want to talk about that a little bit? Your fun experience getting to and from.
Oh yeah, man. It's so the way up there. Well, actually, step back just a little bit. We were on our way home from Hot Springs. I noticed on the semi, we were driving at night, and I noticed my brake lights were on the semi, and then they would stay on. It's like an intermittent thing, so they'd stay on, go off, stay on, go off. Well, then they were mostly off the entire trip. We get home, don't think anything of it. Load up, head to Top Trails, and we were probably 10 minutes from Top Trails, and the brake lights came on and then they stayed on. So I would pull over and fool with it, try to play around with the pedal, see if that's it. Because, uh, I'm not thinking at this point that it's like electrical issue. I'm thinking there's, something to do with like a sticky brake pedal or sticky brake or something like that. But brakes ended up getting pretty hot on the trailer. We were able to limp that thing to the park. And then that was Thursday night. We get there probably about 1 a.m. Thursday or Friday morning. I'm sorry. Then Friday we got up and then I tore off to the Volvo dealership in Birmingham, which is about another hour away, and got what I thought was the fix to the problem. We uh, worked on that thing. Your dad, Jug, he helped us out with it, and we greased the whole machine. Wes was helping us, and we uh, we ended up fixing the truck. And then as we were leaving the park Sunday, bam, the issue started happening all over again. So, uh, I ended up chambering the brakes on the trailer just to limp it back home, which uh, I'm no truck mechanic, but I think by the time this is all over with, I'll probably be ASC certified Volvo.
I've told you. I said I know enough about those big trucks that I probably shouldn't own one. You're
Right.
probably in the same boat with me. So at least
Oh,
we've got people we can bounce stuff off of if we need to.
right.
Oh God, yeah. We woke up Friday morning, and in Lane, he's like, "What's that smell?" And I was like, "I don't have any idea." Like I could smell. I was like, somebody's burning a clutch or got a brake dragging or something. And I didn't think anything of it. And then I walked around behind my trailer, and you were parked right behind me, and it about
Right.
knocked me down. I said, "Oh God, what has he done?"
It would probably still at that time.
Oh, it was bad. Yeah, I think they were still smoking. And then all weekend in that vendor trailer. So in the little vendor lot, it's kind of in a U shape or whatever. But Dan was able to pull right behind me and park. And all weekend long, up until even we were leaving, you could smell that brake. So it got pretty warm, but at least you got it back home where you can get somebody who knows what the hell they're doing to to look at
Right.
that deal for you. Overall, the event weekend. So I'm going to do it. Two different perspectives. As a fan, if I would have been coming as a fan, as just somebody hanging out over the weekend, I think it was an awesome event.
Right.
There's, all day Saturday, there was something going on. As a vendor, as an event supporter, I feel like it could be organized a little bit better to run people through that area. Because
Right.
everybody kept telling me Top Trail's small park, small park. Everybody's saying small park. Well, it is, but the camping area before you get into the actual trails, I guess, is huge. And it's so
Right.
spread out. Like you'll be driving down those little gridded roads, and there'll be a camper here, and you won't see one for a while, and there'll be a camper there. Which, if you're
Right.
camping, awesome. You ain't got no neighbors, whatever. But for us, we need a way. We need to be in a place where they all have to come by us.
Right.
Because I was expecting it to be a huge, huge weekend, and we still had a pretty good weekend, but it wasn't and it was just due to traffic flow. The people were there. It was just
Right.
traffic flow. So from a fan perspective, I think it was a great event. Perspective, I think it could have. It's got room for improvement, room for growth. But
Right.
overall, Tony and the guys down at Top Trails, I think, done a good job.
Oh yeah,
Go ahead.
they were pretty organized. Like you said, I feel like they could have figured a way to funnel most of the traffic through there. I'm just glad that they were able to put the food vendors along with the parts vendors. That way, it would help draw the crowd to the location.
Yeah, yeah, that's always a general rule of thumb for us. If I can't be at the event, wherever the event is, I want to be with the food.
Right.
Just because the food always draws, no matter where it's at. Food always draws. And I didn't realize, I didn't realize that, of course, I've never been there, that Five Hills was so far away. It's almost, what is it, a mile and a half back from the vendor area to the hill
Right.
climb. But it wasn't, I mean, you could get a 2-wheel drive car back there. It wasn't like a trail, really.
Right.
It's just a long way away. And when it got close to hill climb time, everybody in the park was back there, as they should be.
Right.
So I just wonder if there's a way to make that experience for the businesses that come and support it. Is there a way to make that experience for those businesses? Rock Life was there, super ATV, high lifter, off road vixens, motorcycle sports, several of us vendors, and at like 4 or 5 o'clock, we all closed up and we were done.
Right.
So there is a way to do it. I don't know what that is, but there is a way to do it. And if we can figure that out, that place has the potential to have a very huge, huge presence from vendor sponsors, other companies, stuff like that is what draws. Sponsors like to activate on their sponsorship. They like to come to the events. They like to set up, but it's only worth it if people can walk by their booth.
That's right.
So there's a way to do it. But overall, for the event, I think it's a good event. Dude, those machines in that, I've been to a couple mud bogs, bounty hole kind of deals. I ain't never been to nothing like this.
Right.
Those guys, I mean, some of them, the biggest one there was actually, I think, Tony's, who run the event. 84-inch tires on a UTV.
Right. That's just absolutely insane.
I can't fathom it. I've told it to everybody I've come across, and maybe in that world that is not that uncommon. For me, it is very uncommon. You come straight out of the transmission into a little stub axle that's probably 6 inches long,
Right.
into a 8 or 12 inch portal, down the axle to a 16-inch portal. I mean, just massive suspension components. All this stuff is, one-off built. Just completely unreal. I don't know. And they may look at us and go, our little tube chassis. Sure, they're nothing compared to that, but it's completely different
Right.
than what they're used to. So they may look at us and see the same kind of, what the crap. I don't
Right.
know.
And I had a chance to walk through the pits and watch a little bit of the mud event. I'll send you some of those pictures to put on the Out the Top Instagram for the show notes for this episode, just so the viewers can kind of go back and look and see what we're talking about, because these machines are no joke. You walk up to them, the tires taller than you are. Like you said, every one of them have portals. The race teams are professional. They're wearing crew shirts similar to what Rock Life has done in the past. Just crazy to look at some of these machines. And like you said, they probably look at us and think we're crazy also. But I would say probably the machines are built similar. Like all of our machines versus their machines, they don't hold back when it spends money on top parts. Getting the best of the best, and that's just instead of us having all of us have billet transmissions and those guys, they have billet portals, so it's like they're still allocating the same amount of money. They're just putting them towards different things. But those machines are wild.
Well, I noticed a lot of the big difference in their machines and our machines, minus the tires and portals. I mean, that's obvious. A lot of those guys, when they get so big, every bit of the suspension is completely custom, especially
Right.
the big ones, and that's where they're really different than us. But they were running TCP transmissions, stock Razor motors,
Right.
or just the regular things that we would do. You take that off those that custom suspension, and it's the same thing we've got, just put together differently.
Right.
But I was impressed to see some of those four wheelers, ATVs running those. I think a couple guys had like a 6 or 7 second run through those mud pits.
Right.
One kid run it in 7 seconds. Didn't look like he'd even unloaded it off the trailer. It was so clean when he got done. So I don't know, man. It's cool, and it was cool. I noticed at the hill climb Saturday night. Now they'd done the awards for the entire event after the hill climb.
Right.
Tony did give some awards away to the guys who couldn't stay for the hill climb. But there was a lot of those guys that come down and hung out and watched what we were doing. And so that was really cool that they stuck around and because at that event, the hill climb guys were the guests.
Right.
That's a bounty hole event, bounty hole series. They do hill climbs on occasion. So we were the guest at that event, and it was cool that a lot of those guys come down and hung out with us and watched. There's a lot of money in Polaris side-by-sides down there this weekend. I know that.
Right.
Hill climbs, like I said, it was at 5 hills. Everybody calls it 5 hills. I think we counted, 8? There's actually 8 hills at 5 hills.
Right.
I guess at one time it was 5 hills.
Right. So Five Hills was just a popular party place at Top Trails back in the day. And then, it got to where people were making new lines and finding new parts of the hills to play on. And now, some of the past events have come in and they've dug out and made the hills a little bit harder to climb. But that place is, it's no joke now. Used to Five Hills was just a little play area. Now it's not a playground for the kids anymore. It's a playground for the men.
So I've watched the videos of I've never been there, and I watched the videos from where you'd run there. And on the videos, the hills, the length of the hills, when I got there, I was like, okay, that's about what it looks like.
Right.
But the videos that I'd watched do not do, and we say this all the time. You're watching a video of these races. The video does not do the hill justice, ever.
Right.
I was under the impression that I can watch, I've seen this enough that I can look at the videos and I'll be like, yeah, that's pretty gnarly.
Right.
I still was like with 5 hills, I was like, yeah, that's a pretty decent little hill. That's nothing crazy. But when you get down there and get on them, and they're very climbable, but climbing them at speed is different than just getting up them.
Right.
And they're a lot gnarlier than I thought they would be. I was pretty impressed with how the Razor buggies took it. You and Cooper and Brian and DC and everybody. Those buggies ate it up, but they are no joke. And then there was a lot of people though that had a whole lot of trouble, especially on what number was it? The very far hill that a lot of the guys were flipping off of.
So I believe that was 6. So hills 1 through 4 are, I would say intermediate hills, but 5, 6, 7, and then they dug out the bottom of 8, so you really couldn't get a run on it. So those were the obviously harder ones that we were given to choose from.
Yeah, the format of this race is, it's not different, I don't guess you could say, that much of anything else, because we have a lot of ups and downs in our series now. But so you started at the starting line and there was 7 hills. You started and they numbered them with spray paint or whatever.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There were 7 hills, and you had to go up all 7, and then you had to come
Right.
down either the left road or the right road, and then hit another hill.
Right.
But you got to pick the succession of your run, right?
Right.
So there was no order. So that was pretty cool watching different people, start at different points, or
Right.
doing different rhythms and stuff. So that was pretty neat. Was there a you pretty much went in order, didn't you? Like 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth.
Right. To help me remember what hill I hit last, I just counted them off 1 through 7. That was the easiest way it was for me to keep up with it because, I mean, man, it was violent. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't that tough of a course. It was just a really rough terrain. So, uh, I felt like I just had the crap kicked out of me the entire race. And then, on top of it, trying to remember which hills to hit, to me, it was just easier to hit them, one at a time, just in order.
Yeah, for me that would have. There's no. I couldn't have. Hell, I'd have got lost anyways. Uh, but that would have been the only way to do it. And the times were. I think DC was like a 3:08 or something, and then you
Right.
ended up in fourth with like a 3:18 or 19, something like that.
Right.
So
We figured, as far as our GoPro, that was the time on the GoPro.
yeah, so that I mean that's pretty good to and DC took a little different line than some people, I think. Um, and so I don't know, man. It's strategy comes into play on something like that when you have free reign.
Right.
We talked about this with Wyatt back a while, and we were talking about here's the start line, here's the finish line, get there. Well,
Right.
this was kind of like that with except you had to go up to 7 hills.
Right.
Didn't matter how you got up them or which one you done win, but here's the start line, here's the finish line. You got 7 hills, figure it out.
Right.
So I don't know. And speaking of that, so one of the hills they marked off. Uh, what number would that have been?
So I think it was number 4 and 5. So the best that I could make sense of was before we started racing. Tony laid out the hills. This was hill number 1 here, and like hill number 8 was the very last hill. Well, one of the bouncer drivers said, uh, we need to figure something different because my bouncer cannot pass through those trees. So, Top Trails is generally a ATV side by side park. So those hills were, cut in by ATV guys, side by side guys. We weren't thinking big bouncers. So there are some tight spots in that hill series. But one of the bouncer drivers said, if I can't fit through it, I know none of the other big bouncers can fit through it. So that's when that hill was deemed not an option.
Yeah, so they marked that off, and I'm wanting to say, like you said, it was like probably would have been actually hill number 5 probably.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So you had 1, 2, 3, 4, and then right after 4 you had an X hill, which was the no go,
Right.
and then it continued on down the line. So the no go hill, they said in the drivers' meeting, it's no go hill. Don't go that hill. Go everywhere else, not that hill.
Right.
And if you do that, I wasn't there. I'm assuming, if you do that, then your run's null and void.
Right.
And I think this something of this same deal happened at the outlaw race back a while, where there was some rules said in the drivers' meeting, and then somebody done it, and then oh well, our bad, go again.
Right.
So DC, who ended up winning the race, his first run, he ran the hills, went up the no-go hill, missed one of the other hills. So now listen, I love DC. We're Rock Life's on the side of his car, and I'll say this would have been for anybody who done this. If you're told, don't go up this hill, Now, could they have marked it off a little bit better? Maybe, but it had a big X on it. You had all day to look at it. Don't go up that hill.
Right.
If that's in the driver's meeting and that's in the rules, we can't be letting people rerun.
Right.
We just can't. We cannot. At Outlaw, I think it was, if you go outside the tape, come back in where you left, or something like that, and then that was screwed up, and somebody got to rerun. So the biggest part of that is not so much, okay, well, we screwed up. Let's let the guy rerun. The guy's got to run on the course.
Right.
So if he's got to run on the course and he screws up here in a turn or whatever, and he gets to rerun it, he knows where he screwed up, so he knows where to pick up time.
Right. So it's familiarizing yourself with the course.
Yeah.
Is the way I look.
Yeah, and that's the problem for me. If if we're going to start doing everybody who steps out of the course gets a rerun, then my advice to everybody would be run your run and jump out of the course before the finish line and go, oops, I screwed up. Let me do it again.
Right.
Because that's the only frustrating part to me, and it's happened a couple weeks in a row. And listen, like I said, I love DC, and this is not nothing against DC, but he probably shouldn't have won that race.
Right.
And like I said, it didn't matter to me who it would have been. It's frustrating when these people who put on these races can't make their mind up. And on top of that, we're running down there, and this is a technical error, but it is also frustrating. Halfway through the side-by-side class, they pull the timers up, and they're doing it by stopwatch. So thankfully, we didn't have any times that come down to like tenths of seconds, which is what we usually get. So there wasn't any timing and scoring issues that way, but it very well could have been race problems, I guess. I don't run the series. I have the luxury to sit back and fuss at these guys when I see them doing this stuff. I don't have to do it. So,
right. My thoughts are, the driver should be there to race and have a good time and be able to trust that the series is keeping up with everything in a professional manner. It shouldn't be up to the drivers to record and keep up with timing and scoring at each of them.
Yeah, we shouldn't have to. And this is something, let's get us boys, it ain't hard. Let's get us a big screen TV somewhere put up. Link it to your computer. Somebody needs to enter the times as we're running. That way, at least you can walk up and see them. Right. I get we're in remote locations, right? We're in remote locations. I'm not asking for a Jumbotron, although that would be pretty sweet. But there needs to be a way for people to see times as we go. That's another frustrating thing to me as a fan. If I don't stick around for the trophy presentation, I don't know who won.
That's right.
And we're sitting here watching all these guys, and this isn't of Southern. This is every series. The average Joe class ran. If you're a fan of one of those guys who ran first, when that class is over with, you should know who won.
That's right.
There should be no having to wait around 5 hours to figure out if your friend won the race or didn't win the race, or that's frustrating to me across the board. There needs to be some communication that way, like I said, and that goes for everybody. But like I said, I'm here talking about it, not doing it. So it's a lot easier to sit here and talk about it than it is to do it. But ideas for improvement, more consistency across the board would be super sweet.
Right. Nothing wrong with a little bit of constructive criticism.
No. I knew, and also, at the end of the night, I knew DC won the race. They let him rerun. He was faster than everybody. I knew he won the race, and then see, I think that's what made it even worse is there was some confusion over times at the podium presentation,
Right.
and people got called up, handed trophies, and then they all got took back and switched around, and that's got to be frustrating as a driver. But I mean, I knew he won. I was sitting here thinking, well, how in the world, like they've let him run, they let him rerun, and then now they're not going to give him a time. Like this is a little frustrating, but they got it straightened out. If they let him rerun, more power to him. Go get you a time.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's good for him, but that shouldn't have been the case. I don't think.
right. Well, and from our understanding was he was 3 seconds faster on the rerun. So, there was it just seemed real. It just really wasn't too much to understand how it went from him not being on the podium to being on the podium with 3 seconds
Yeah,
in between times.
yeah.
So
I don't know. It was. I don't know. It was a mess. Hopefully, though, like I said, and Tony said this at the trophy presentation, and I'm not knocking Tony. He said this, that they work at this and they always try and learn and get better. And
right,
when they figured that out, he got on the mic and he said, "Hey, we'll be better next time." So good for him.
right,
And like I said, I'm not picking on him or their series at all because I was grateful that they let us come down there and have a weekend with them.
right.
Hopefully they'll be back and we'll get to come back. But this was just constructive criticism for all series.
Absolutely.
Get your rules in line, follow them. It is
Stick
what it
to it.
is, guys. It's big. This is big money racing. People might not think it is, but this is big money racing. And when money gets involved, feelings get hurt, and pocketbooks get hurt. So that's why we have rule books. All right, guys. Moving on. Polaris has their mid-season roster lineup announcement coming on May 16th, and the big news coming out of that, we think, is the new Polaris. They've been calling it, I guess, the Expedition on their social media channels. Originally, we thought it was a new Ranger, or I'm sorry, a new General. Then people were calling it an Admiral, and then nobody knew what it was. But now Polaris is actually, I think, giving it the name Expedition. It's pretty cool if it ends up being what we think it is, and they've put out a couple videos of it, little teaser deals. Going to come in 3 packages: a Premium, Unlimited, and a North Star. So I know a lot of people who have been wanting a General North Star, and if this isn't, or if this is a General North Star, or is something similar and just as capable of a General North Star, this may be one of the top selling units from Polaris of the year as soon as it drops.
Right.
I know we've talked about that a couple times. I've got a General XP, and I've said the whole time if they ever come out with a General North Star, that I will take mine and trade it in the day it releases.
Right. So you and I talked about this pretty much the same week that you got your General. You come from a Ranger crew North Star, and then you went to the General crew, and that was one of our first talks, is how nice that Ranger was, being the North Star edition, and how cool it would be if the General were to step up and have a North Star edition.
So I loved my Ranger.
So that was kind of my thoughts, was were they going to drop that bombshell?
Yeah, I loved my Ranger. We had a long travel North Star crew. Loved it. Loved the air conditioning, tint the windows, pimped that baby out. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Just never could get used to the way it's set driving in the woods, like actually trail riding it where I want to take my Razor.
Right.
In that General, I kind of felt like I was setting up high. So I just never could get comfortable driving it. So we traded it for the General, but I miss the comforts. Boys, I'm a booze cruiser. I've got a kid. We like to have air conditioning and heat. I like to ride whenever I want to ride. So the North Star, I miss it a lot. And this unit that's coming out, it may be. I'm thinking it's going to be more of a long travel Ranger hybrid vehicle, than I think it's going to be more Ranger than General.
Right.
Supposedly, it's coming with the new 5 lug wheels and the new wheel bearing assembly. I know you hadn't spent much time around the Turbo R Pro R, but that deal, used to wheel bearings were a big deal on a Polaris, always changing them. This has got like a hub assembly, like a Dodge pickup. You don't buy a wheel bearing, you buy a whole assembly. Bearings already in it, studs. It's a little expensive, but bearing life is unbelievable in them. I have yet to have to replace any, and I've got some friends up here that's got miles and miles and miles on them already.
Right.
So that's good if they're going to do that. They're saying a wider suspension, longer wheelbase. I don't know if it needs to be any longer than what the Rangers and Generals are now.
Right.
But I don't know. They extended that Pro R4. It's pretty long, and people are liking it. So that's not going to be a bad deal. More horsepower, 120 horse.
Well, the first thing I think of when you mention, wheelbase length, I'm kind of wondering if they're going to a trailing arm setup.
So that's been the big craze. People have been putting trailing arm setups on the Generals for a while. There's some people down in Tennessee that do it. You can take them, your General, and they will make it a General S.
Right.
And I'm wondering if they're going to this 5 lug hub assembly deal, if they're not just going to go ahead and do the same suspension that's under the Turbo R Pro R.
I think that'd be sick.
That would be unbelievable. I may be overstepping my thought process here. I'm getting a little far-fetched, but a 72 or 74 inch wide Ranger or General, whatever it is, Expedition, that's going to be a game changer. Because listen, I love my General. It'll go anywhere I ever took my Razor before. It's probably my favorite Polaris I've ever owned. I've had turbo 2-seaters, XP 1000 4-seaters. I've never gotten into like the Turbo S and things like that, the real high performance ones, because that's just not me for trail riding. I like more of a utility style vehicle.
Right.
Even back when I was, running ATVs, I always had 4-wheel drives when my friends were all out there on them racing 4-wheelers and stuff, and I went everywhere they went. I just got there a little slower. So
that's right.
It's all right. But I don't know. What do you think? I think this is going to be, if it is what it is. Have you seen the images of it? You haven't, have you?
I have not. Like we've been so busy with work and racing and all this other stuff, it's just kind of slid by us.
Well, there's a teaser video that got put out a couple days ago, and there's some guys on the old interwebs that are pretty good at digging this stuff out, and they pause that video at certain points, and you can see images of it pretty clearly, and
I'll have to get online and check it out.
It looks like a Sport Ranger.
That's cool.
Yeah, more so than a General. It looks like a sporty Ranger. But I mean, I always thought that's what a General was a sporty Ranger. But this looks even more along those lines. And if they put that long travel in there, also, I think what's going to be cool is they're putting, I guess this is optional, that thing's going to be set up for like overlanding.
Right.
So I'm assuming the accessory line that's going to come from that is going to be unreal. They're probably going to have rooftop tents, so on and so forth. They've already got a hard cover, bed cover, like a hard top on a Jeep.
Right.
I don't know, man. I just think it could be cool. Polaris really stepping the game up this year. They re-released that 1000 XP for the first time in 10 years. Now they've got this general. Excuse me, I keep calling it a general because that's what we all wanted for years was the General North Star. I keep calling it that, but I think it's going to be the Expedition. We'll know in a couple weeks, and when it comes out, we'll actually talk about it and get our actual thoughts on what it is.
Maybe they'll send do a walk around.
Yeah, I mean, Polaris, if you're listening, just send one down here. We'll have a peek at that thing for you, and we'll test her out and let you know what's going on. But man, they've really stepped it up. If they do everything that everybody is wanting this to be, man, I think it's going to be off the chain.
Right. I think it's going to be a beginning to a new era for Polaris.
All right, guys. The next big race coming up for Dan and Team Rock Life is Morse Mountain for the Outlaw Off-Road Racing Series on May the 20th. I have never been to Morse Mountain. Honestly, before I seen this schedule, I had never personally heard of Morse Mountain, so I'm kind of dumb to it. I'm going to let Dan tell you about that park, what to expect, and what expectations are. So what you got for us?
Right. So Morse Mountain is it's probably one of our closest parks, and it's more of the crawler guys, dream park. It's not it's like slow hill climb, stuff like that. There's a few bad hills. There's a couple of them called like V Notch is one that a lot of guys like play on, like Toyota guys and Jeep crawler guys. But actually, Morse Mountain is home to Ricky Berry's RBD bash. So Ricky's B-Day, that's RBD. First, when he started out, I think it was the first 2 years possibly, it was invite only, and then he opened it up to the public. And the event just kept growing and growing and growing. So now that's why he's had to move the event elsewhere, just because the park is got really good parking, but it's limited, and the trails doesn't have a really big trail system, but it's a pretty cool park. There's a lot of cool obstacles there. Some stuff that people would probably remember is back in the heyday of rock bounces, when it first started out, they were jumping a trail called Los Primos. So that's where you'll see some of the old Mad Ram and Busted Knuckle films.
That's where that hill's at. I've heard of that one.
Right. So, and then too, you'll see that's where the infamous Barbie Jeep race started from Busted Knuckle. Matt Merrick and those guys would put on the Barbie Jeep race on Sunday while everybody was kind of packing out, and the trail system was not as busy over the weekend. They would do the Barbie Jeep races on that Saturday, or I'm sorry, on that Sunday when everybody was leaving. So it'll be pretty cool to get to revisit that park. This will be the first time that there's been an official race there that I'm aware of.
That's cool. I didn't realize. I've heard of Los Primos. I've seen the videos. I remember the Barbie Jeep videos. And now that I'm thinking back about it, I remember when RBD started, hearing about it down there. And it's moved around. RBD's moved around a couple times, hasn't it?
Right. So it was there for, if I'm not wrong, maybe 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And then moved to the Busted Knuckle Park in Stevenson, Alabama for a year. And then since then, he's been at Hawk Pride.
Yeah, it seems like I may have caught in on the. I may have been getting into the rock bouncing scene about. It was just before Busted Knuckle opened, so right there at the end of that. So I do remember a little bit about Morse Mountain. Rock bouncer guys, please don't hate me. It's too far south for me. I have no idea. But it looks like it'll be a good time. So you said parking is limited. So what you're saying is for spectators, if they want to come watch some 2-lane racing side by side, they should probably arrive as early as they can.
Right. And if I'm not wrong, I'm going to say the park maybe have like 5 camper RV hookups with power. And then the rest is just like primitive camping, get in where you fit in.
Right on. Outlaw's usually a Saturday only event anyways. So, maybe y'all have a big spectating crowd down there Saturday. I'm not going to be able to make it. But hopefully, listen, you're sitting in third in points in the outlaw race. So
Right.
we got to go down there and maintain that. That way you can come back up to Kentucky a couple weeks later in Blue Holler and get a season overall podium trophy from the Outlaw Series.
Right. That'd be cool. So the main thing's been kind of holding us back is we've had caliper issues. The bleeder screws broke off in the brakes, so my brakes haven't been that great. So we finally got those shipped to us Tuesday. So we're going to be throwing those on this weekend, getting the brakes back ready on the car, and hopefully you'll see us driving that thing a little bit harder this next race.
Right on. I look forward to it. We'll. I don't know as we'll get to have anything next week. Is there a race this weekend? That's Wheeling in the Countries this weekend, isn't it?
So Wheeling in the Countries this weekend. Then also I saw where there's like a short course going on in Cleveland, Alabama. I'm not really familiar with that park or the guy that's hosting the event, but this weekend we're gonna just call it a rest weekend and
Shoo.
kind of get prepped for the next race at Morris Mountain.
Top Trails is hard on us old folks. Too many late nights and early mornings. All right, so guys, rate, follow, review, subscribe, whatever it is that you're supposed to do these podcasts. Please do that. It'll help get us pushed out there. We're really trying to work it. If you know anybody or have any suggestions for the podcast, you can leave us a message on Anchor FM. We'll hear those. We'll respond to those. We'll take it to heart. We'll do what we can. Also, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute. Well, the rundown's next. If your series wants to be a part of the rundown, if you want us to, talk about your series, get us some results, guys. There's some rock races. There's rock racing series all over the country. Get us some results. Get in contact with us, and we'll get that put on there. Daniel, until next time.
Thank you, sir.
See ya.
Appreciate you listening.
Right on.